Welcome to everyone. It is a pleasure to have you here. We have another exciting virtual career talk. For the next 90 minutes or so, we're going to be listening to Nkem Begho share her experience in software development, why she chose to pursue a technical career, and also some of the lessons that she has learned from her life, educational lessons, as well as professional career lessons that she'll be able to share with us. And you'll be able to ask questions and, find out a little more about this amazing, woman leader who is a trailblazer in the African continent and in the tech space. I want to start out by just quickly reading a snapshot of her bio. She has a very impressive resume, but I will just highlight a few things. Nkem is currently the founder and managing director of Future Software Ltd, which is an IT solutions provider that's focused on online solutions, e-learning, as well as IT security. She is one of the few Nigerian women in the tech industry, and her success is founded on a passion for driving innovative thinking, building a globally recognized technology brand, and also setting trends in the Nigerian technology space. She is a respected and recognized leader in her industry and is regularly featured in newspaper and magazine publications, as well as an expert speaker in ICT across Africa. She's a recipient of many awards, including the Jim Ovia Prize for Software Excellence, a TCELET Prize for Innovation, and she also regularly volunteers to mentor and empower women and girls across Nigeria, as well as underprivileged children. She is obviously also a mentor to the Visiola Foundation, has participated in our coding boot camps in the past, and it is an absolute delight for us to have her on the line today. So I'm gonna hand it over to you, and Nkem, thank you so much, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much, Nade. Thank you for having me once again. It's always a pleasure, and I'm always excited to, share, especially with young women and girls that you so nicely have put into your network and that you enrich all the time. I have prepared a presentation which I am going to share, and I'll just talk through it. But I really want people to sort of just like ask questions as we go along, right? So you don't have to wait to the end. So if something isn't clear or you feel like, okay, I just want to know more about this particular thing that you say you did or are doing, right? So before I start, I think I'll just, sort of quickly set the scene a little bit, right? So I'm a serial entrepreneur, right? So outside of, sort of my technology business that Lade mentioned, I, either run or I'm part of at least 5 other businesses that I founded in the last probably like in the last 6 years or so. And what I've realized is that the sort of like common thread across all of those businesses that are not all in technology, right? Some of them are in manufacturing, one of them is in publishing, one of them is in insurance, and one of them is in talent, and sort of the talent pipeline, right? That's my most recent baby. And what I've realized is that technology is sort of the one factor that goes through all of these different businesses, right? Which sort of means that technology is, sort of like the one skill that everybody sort of has to have. And, with this global pandemic, we're really seeing that this is becoming a reality where everyone really needs to invest in their digital literacy and their digital skills in order to participate in this global economy and this global world, right? And this world where everything is sort of physically distant, right? And you have to, use virtual means to actually connect with people, to do your business, and everything. Now, so as I said, I'm a serial entrepreneur, right? So I've titled my presentation Entrepreneur Meets Techie, right? When I started my business in 2008, I just wanted to do tech. If you had told me that, oh, you're going to have all these different businesses and all these different sectors, I would have laughed and said, yeah, that's crazy. Who does that, right? Who starts multiple businesses? But now I've just realized that over time you grow, right? Over time you expand. Over time you pivot. You sort of are also have the ability to take on more things, right? So all of the things that I'm going to talk about today, you guys have to remember that it took years, right, to get there. You also have to remember that it's been a journey, right? It took blood, sweat, tears, hard work, being broke, all sorts of different things to get to where I am today, right? Because I think sometimes when young people sort of say, oh, I want to be like you, right? And I've had this a lot where, you say, what do you want to do in the next 5 years? I want to be you in 5 years. But I didn't become me in 5 years, right? Sort of this is like 17 or more years of work that you're seeing, right? And that's in a professional postgraduate capacity, right? So if you're still in university or about to go into university, right, you have to just keep that at the back of your mind, right? And my advice is don't be in a hurry, right? Enjoy the journey, because I think that that's really, really important. And when you look at who you want to be and where you want to be, remember that everybody has a story, everybody has a journey, and journey takes time, right? Experience is not something you can buy. Experience is not something you can learn or acquire, right? It takes time. That is just simply the function of it, right? You have to have different opportunities to learn, and within those opportunities to learn, right? And I'm not talking about formal learning, I'm talking about sort of learning on the job, right? Within those opportunities to learn, you are then able to, sort of really get that experience, right? So when I compare, sort of maybe a project manager that has 5 years of experience in my organization, and their thought process and their decision-making process, very different from mine, right? The risks that I see, they don't even see them, right? The things that they think are important, I'm like, no, that's completely secondary. It's not important, right? So experience you cannot buy, which means that you have to spend the time, you have to put in the work, there is no shortcut, right? If you want to be a professional and you want to be a professional that is recognized in your field, then you need to put in the work, right? Okay, so that's just a little bit to sort of start. So today I'm going to be talking about who I am, right? How I got into tech, what do I do sort of on a day-to-day basis? Because like I said, I'm a serial entrepreneur, so my life is very multifaceted. I also sit on boards. I'm also a mentor. I'm a 2019 Obama leader. So there are many, many different angles and parts and facets of who I really am and sort of what I do. And I really like this Diane von Furstenberg quote where she says, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I always knew the woman I wanted to become, right? And I think for me, that has always been very clear. I've always wanted to make impact, right? I've always wanted to touch people's lives. I've always wanted to, sort of build a legacy, right? Have something to be remembered for, right? And that I think mirrors in all the work that I do, right? So that is sort of my why, right? My bigger sort of my North Star, my guiding light, right? Living a life of impact. And I think everybody needs to have some type of thing that grounds you, that focuses you, that sort of tells you this is going in the right direction, because that sort of helps you when you're making decisions, right? So if you know who you want to become, right, then you don't necessarily need to know what you want to do, okay? Because life is full of surprises. Like I said, if anyone had said I would be part of an insurance startup, I would have said, yeah, insurance is so boring. Who wants to be part of an insurance startup, right? But insurance is actually exciting, and there are so many, in InsurTech, there's so many opportunities, right? So you discover new things, and then you discover new sides to you as you go on, right? I'm also going to be talking about sort of running your own business. I don't know how many people here want to be entrepreneurs, right? It sounds so nice, right? Oh, I want to be like Aliko Dangote. Yeah, me too, right? But are you ready to put in the work? The man works 18 hours a day, Can you do that, right? Are you ready to sacrifice that way? Because it is a sacrifice, right? If you, Elon Musk, the same thing, right? He sleeps 4 hours a day, the rest of the day he spends working, right? And Elon Musk's theory is if you, instead of doing a 40-hour work week, if you do an 80 or 100-hour work week, you basically are able to do the work that other people do in a year. Yeah, so the work that people do, you would do 2 years of work in the time that other people would take 1 year to do, right? So it's all about sacrifice. It's all about really thinking about how do I become great and how do I accelerate my learning? How do I, position myself? So entrepreneurship, I think, is not for everyone. It is for those very crazy people. And, I just want to give you guys sort of an insight into what it actually takes to be an entrepreneur. This is not easy. And then lastly, I'll talk about how to obtain tech and entrepreneurial skills as well. So who am I, right? So I love tech. I studied bioinformatics, which is a double major in computer science and biology at the Ludwig Maximilian University and Technical University of Munich in Germany. I'm a techie at heart, right? So that's sort of the first hat that I wear. I'm a serial entrepreneur. Like Glade had introduced, I'm also the CEO of Future Soft. I'm a geek in disguise, right? And I think this has always been the case, right? So in university, a lot of the time, so I had a friend who was in my course as well, and we were the only 2 girls who loved wearing high heels and nice dresses. And like you can see in my picture, I still do. And there was a day we were looking for some advanced math class that we were supposed to take, and we asked this guy in the hallway in our building, and we were like, hey, where's this class? And he's like, you guys are in the wrong building. I'm like, what's this guy talking about, right? We're in the right building. We know where we're going, but we just don't know where this room is. And he's like, no, the business building is down the road. You guys are in the wrong building. This is computer science. And we were so confused. We were like, yeah, we know. We study bioinformatics. And he's like, what? This is impossible, right? Simply because we didn't look like we studied computer science. And this is why I say I'm in disguise, right? When people meet me a lot of the time, they're like, what, you're in tech? You look more like you're in fashion, or you look like, maybe you're a banker or something, right? So one message that I want to give to especially young girls, right? Don't let a male-dominated field intimidate you. Don't let it change who you are. If you're a girly girl at heart, stay a girly girl at heart, right? Be you, right? Be yourself. You don't have to change who you are, right? You don't, in fact, I actually think being yourself and, sort of highlighting those very feminine assets of your personality and of who you are can be a very, very big advantage, right? Because first of all, a lot of the time, whether it's sitting on a committee or whether it's speaking at a conference or whether it's going to a tech hangout, a lot of the time I'm one of the only women there, right? And people are like, oh, don't you feel lonely? Don't you feel like an imposter? The answer is no, because I'm doing what I've been called to do, right? This is my purpose. And if there's a bunch of tigers that I need to sit with in this committee meeting, I will sit with the tigers as long as that's what it takes, right? So I think you just need to be very confident in who you are, right? And I think that for me is one of the biggest sort of lessons that I want you to take away from today, right? Be confident in who you are. So Lade had mentioned I'm a mentor. So I'm a mentor for the Visiola Foundation. I'm a mentor for WTech. I'm a mentor for Women in Africa. I'm a mentor for Nest Africa. I'm a mentor for LSETF as well. And then I sort of have some other mentees that are not in a formal mentoring program, but that will just call me from time to time and say, hey, Nkem, what's going on? How do I do this? I have this problem. I want you to help me think through X, Y, Z, right? I'm also a policy shaper. So I talked about sitting on committees, right? So I'm part of the Nigerian Economic Summit group that is really focused on shaping policy to create socioeconomic impact. And these are things that they have nothing to do with my job, right? My business. These are things that I do as me, right? So there's a very big differentiation between who I am as Nkem and who I am as the CEO of Future Software, for example, right? And I think that that's something that a lot of young people don't really understand, right? I've deliberately separated my brand, right? First of all, because I have multiple businesses, so I wear multiple hats, and and secondly, also because outside of being a CEO, I am so many other things, right? And so that means that I need to sort of really position as my own person and as my own personal brand, and that's a very deliberate, thing that you have to do, sort of building your personal brand, because that opens many, many more doors. So I'm a global speaker as well. I've done, in the last 12 years, I've done over 150 speaking engagements, both local and global. I'm a 2019 Obama Africa leader. So there are 200 of us across the continent who were chosen by the Obama Foundation as leaders that have done outstanding work. And there's training that comes with that. There are lots of different amazing opportunities. Like going to the Global Obama Summit, and actually, sort of sitting like 2 meters away from Barack and Michelle. That was, I think, the highlight of my year as an Obama leader. I'm also a board member of Stanbic IBTC PLC, which is a financial services group in Nigeria, and they are part of the Standard Bank Group, owners of Stanbic IBTC Bank, and you would ask yourself, okay, so why is this person that is in technology sitting on the board of a bank, right? And how did you even get there? You look so young. I am young, I like to claim at least. And I'm probably the youngest bank board member in Nigeria, at least from my own research. I haven't. Most other banks have much older board members, but I would say that the reason why I am on that board is because the world is going digital, right? And any smart company will require people who have knowledge to be on their board to help guide them through the transition and through the transformation that is happening, right? In order for their business to survive, right? Which means that there are massive, massive opportunities for young people to actually take up spaces. Somebody's drawing on my presentation, to actually take up spaces on the board of organizations, right? I'm also on the board of the Society for Corporate Governance of Nigeria. Okay, I don't know how to get rid of this drawing. Okay, so how did I get into tech? I think this is really, sort of like a good question. So on the picture on the left, you can see me and my sisters. So I'm the first daughter, and I have 2 sisters. And on the right, you can see a picture of my mom and my dad and my sisters, sort of a more recent version of us. So my dad is called the Oracle of ICT in Nigeria. And, he has really been very instrumental in sort of me selecting my career, right? And my mom, she's sort of like Superwoman, right? She is the person who fixes everything in our house. So, like say, oh, Mom, the video recorder is broken, if you guys even know what that is, right? So back in the day, we had VCRs. So it's like, oh, the video recorder is broken. And then she would come with her toolbox, open it up and, fix it somehow. We dare not ask our dad to do that because that would lead to a complete disaster, right? So even though he was in technology, he was not a handyman and not like a person that could fix electronics. And I think that, having that really good mix of, a dad that, sort of was in technology when hardly anyone was in technology, right? That meant that we always had a computer from when I was 3 years old. I've always had a computer, and my dad always said it's not for playing, right? It's for you to create, it's for you to do work, it's for you to, so you can play with it too, but the main goal should be for you to actually see what you can do with it and create value and sort of unleash the power, right? And that mix coupled with a mom that, you know, sort of shows you that you can do anything, and that these things are not for girls, you know, and that, you know, that she can do it even better than, you know, my dad is able to do it. That combination, I think, is, you know, sort of the reason why I ended up in tech. My dad also had this fantastic idea, in hindsight fantastic, as it was happening we didn't think it was fantastic, for us to do coding lessons. I was 16, so he then got somebody in his company to come and teach us. And, you know, the guy would come Saturday and Sunday, 4 hours each day, and start teaching us Visual Basic. And I mean, like, it was torture. My sister used to run away from this. And, you know, we always tease her because she's the least likely person to actually work in technology, but she now does. So she always used to run away from these lessons. Then she studied business, international business. You know, she worked in a bank and worked in finance for a really long time. And 2 years ago, she transitioned into a technology company, right? And, you know, we sort of laughed and we were like, this is hilarious because, you know, like, you're the one that's always running away. And my other sister, who is sort of the baby of the house, she actually studied political science and international relations, but she also works in tech. And when you meet her, you would think she's definitely a geek in disguise. I mean, she's worse than me, I think, you know, because she if she doesn't understand something, she, you know, sort of has to learn it. So one day I was in her house and I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I'm learning R. So R is this statistical programming language that we all hated in our computer science class. And we were just like, this is just crazy. Who wants to learn this, right? And, you know, I'm like, sorry, but why are you learning this? And she said, well, you know, that is what some of the engineers write. And in order for her to really understand what they're doing, she needs to learn this programming language. I mean, I think still it's a bit crazy, but I mean, it helped her to sort of understand systems thinking. It helped her to understand, you know, how the engineering part of things actually worked. And it helped her to understand sort of the power and capacity of, you know, the products that she was actually selling in her sales role within a technology company, right? So she worked for Dell EMC Technologies for 6 years, and then she transitioned into Swift UK, which is a global payment gateway, you know, and she does really, really amazing work around blockchain, around, you know, fintech, around payments, and, you know, sort of the future of payments, open banking, and all of that. You know, so the reason why I mentioned my two sisters who did not study computer science is so that you guys also understand that my journey is not the only journey into technology, right? There are many paths into technology, you know, and you don't necessarily need a technology, you know, sort of background in order to be in technology or to excel in technology. Okay, so I've also always had an interest in science. So my sort of favorite subjects were math, physics, biology, computer science. I studied bioinformatics and I worked in research. So when I was in university, I worked in the Department for Statistical Genetics at an institute in Munich. I also worked in the Department for Proteomics afterwards. And I was part of a pharmaceutical company, and I basically developed a chemical compound database for them, which aided sort of, you know, accelerating drug discovery, right? So what you'll see with that is that when you know, study something that is sort of like programming, computer science, you may not work in tech, right? You may work in a completely different field. And I started out in research that was based on drug discovery. So the institute where I was in, the Department for Statistical Genetics, was an institute that was studying depression and anxiety disorders, right? The pharmaceutical company as well was creating drugs for depression and anxiety disorders, right? So at the end of the day, you know, technology skills can be applied in multiple industries. And even with my company today, we've worked across 20 different industries. We've worked with over 175 different clients, right, in those different industries. And every single time you learn about a new industry, it actually broadens your mind and broadens your horizon. And that's the beauty of technology, that it doesn't have to put you in a box, right? It's almost like management consulting, because you get to do so many different things in so many different areas. So why do I love tech? So tech, first of all, I think it makes your life so much easier through automation. I think there are a lot of helpful apps. I think that, you know, you can sort of schedule tasks that then run automatically. You can access absolutely amazing information, and you can instantly communicate. You know, it's efficient. You can outsource things, you know, online. You can collaborate with other people. So I'm very focused on efficiency and organization. And I think that technology just makes everybody more organized and more efficient, and just really, really enhances our lives in terms of how we connect with people and the opportunities that we are able to get, you know, by being able to connect on a global level and not just on a local level, right? And I think that the pandemic has sort of highlighted that even more, in terms of, you know, showing us that the world really is really, really small now, right? And it makes things like being a global speaker even easier, because you don't need to fly anywhere anymore, right? Sit in front of your computer and you are speaking at a conference in the US, right? At the end of the day, the knowledge that you have to share still gets shared, and the impact that you live for still gets created. So what does the typical day in my life look like, right? So as the CEO, I manage technology and digital projects. I help develop digital marketing strategies for clients. We do IT consultancy projects. We develop software, so we design and develop software programs. I don't code anymore. I stopped coding a really long time ago. I have developers now that do that. But you know, the beauty of actually knowing how to code is the fact that no one can tell you, oh, this thing is going to take 5 years or 5 days to create, right? You know, this is a 5-minute job. Can you please get on with it, right? Also, when things are not running properly and it's efficient, not efficient, then you can, you know, sort of like make suggestions in terms of how the code needs to be written in order for it to be efficient, and in order for it to really fit the, you know, sort of the way that it should be in order for it to be optimized. So being able to code is a really, really big plus as any type of entrepreneur. And I think especially for the future of work and, you know, sort of the 21st century, coding is one skill that I would say everybody needs to learn at least some type of sort of basic, you know, beginner level, so that you understand, you know, the technology that drives everything else that you're doing. I also obviously do core business development and strategy development and implementation, client communication. I research stuff, and I develop new technologies. I also read a lot of stuff, so technology articles and online magazines, newspapers. I do a lot of training as well for clients, for other people, you know, so people who just want to understand how digital works and how technology works. I also speak a lot at conferences. I'm a mentor, and I basically give career talks like I'm doing now. I do one-on-one mentoring and group mentoring sessions as well. And like I mentioned, I'm a global speaker, so I do a lot of speaking engagements. So keynote addresses, panels, lectures at universities, all sorts of different things. So there, as you can see, there are many faces to who I am. So what's techie about that, right? So the answer is nothing at all. Running a tech business is not all about technology. And if you want to sort of learn more about my journey, you can follow me on Instagram. So now we can talk about running a business, right? And being an entrepreneur. What does it actually require? So there's one of my favorite quotes is, being an entrepreneur means living a few years of your life like everyone else won't, so that you can live the rest of your life like everyone else can't, right? And this speaks to financial freedom. It speaks to freedom of owning your own time. It speaks to, you know, sort of being able to work on things that you're really passionate about and that you really, really love, right? Not many people get that privilege in their lives. It speaks to being able to share the knowledge that you have to impact other people's lives, right? I think that these are blessings that sort of come with entrepreneurship, but it takes time before you can unlock them, right? So my other favorite quote is, she believed she could, so she did. So running your own business, what do you need for that? I would say a very, very, very big chunk of discipline, right? And they say that discipline kicks in when motivation has gone to sleep, right? So you can be really excited and really motivated about something, and then you realize that, oh, now I'm tired. Now I don't want to do this anymore. Now this thing is boring. Now, oh gosh, so repetitive. Oh, nobody wants this. Oh my gosh, like my business is not doing well. Okay, maybe I should get a job, right? But the truth is that if you have discipline, all of those things don't matter because you just keep going, right? It also means sacrificing, right? And I spoke about Dangote and how he works 18 hours a day, right? And there is an interview with Mo Ibrahim that he did, I think last year or so, or the year before. I'm not 200% sure now, but he was talking about his refinery project, and, you know, he was showing pictures at the Mo Ibrahim Forum, and, you know, so it was like a one-on-one interview, and they're friends, you know, so they were like joking with each other and, you know, cracking jokes. And, you know, like Mo Ibrahim said, oh, you don't even have a house in London. He said, yeah, you know, because I invest all my money in my business, and and I have your couch to sleep on, right? So I don't need a house. You know, and this sort of shows the side of this man, right? Where he doesn't spend, so I mean, he will enjoy life, right, with all the money that he has, but the way he thinks about, you know, sort of money and what he wants to do, it's very focused on impact, right? He's very meticulous. When he was speaking and he was showing the pictures, he knew every single part of what he was showing. He was like, oh, this is this thing. We had to build a seaport in order to get this to Lagos. And this is what it does. And this is where it fits in. And when we finish, we'll be able to, you know, sort of refine this amount of petroleum, right? This refinery that he's building, I think, is the biggest one in the world, right? It's a massive, massive endeavor. And one thing that requires is sacrifice, right? Working 18 hours a day is very, very hard, especially doing it consistently, right? And he has so many different businesses. For him to know the ins and outs, details of every little screw that was on that, you know, picture, means that he's really, really focusing on his businesses, right? And really and truly, he doesn't have to. If he wanted to just lie on the beach for the rest of his life, he has way more than enough money to do so, right? So discipline is key, sacrifice is key, endurance is key, right? Self-motivation is key, humility is key in all of it, right? Because if you're not humble and you don't have humility, then you won't be able to actually take on feedback, right? You won't be able to really, you know, sort of grow. Because when people tell you, oh, Nkem, you know, that was not good. This talk that you gave today, nobody was motivated. Everybody was sleeping. You didn't do a good job, right? That should not make me feel like, oh, I'm so bad. I don't know how to do it. It should make me feel like, okay, what can I do better, right? I should then ask questions. Okay, what would they have liked to hear? Oh, they wanted to hear about some particular thing that I didn't talk about. Oh, okay, next time I can talk about that, right? So you must be able to take on feedback, right? And you have to be ready to fail. I think entrepreneurship really is, you know, sort of like you fail your way forward, because you have to try many different things, especially if you're doing a business that hasn't been done before, right? Which means that you are, you know, sort of a pioneer. And even if it's been done in a different country, a lot of the sort of parameters and metrics that apply to other countries don't apply to Nigeria, right? Nigeria is a very special basket case. And there are not enough, you know, sort of like business school case studies on Nigeria. There are not enough case studies on how do you go to market? How do you, you know, roll out technology? How do you build and disrupt? You know, there's so much regulation. There's so many powers that be. You know, so there's many, many points of failure, and you just have to be ready for that. And I think, you know, entrepreneurs, you know, the one thing that entrepreneurs must have is sort of that bigger picture thinking, right? Where you can remove yourself from sort of the small details of the day-to-day, and you can assess whether the things that you're doing fit into the bigger picture that you've painted, right? And or whether you're chasing curveballs. You also have to be ready to be broken for a while, right? Because entrepreneurship is like a roller coaster. It has ups, downs, then, you know, sometimes it goes in a loop, sometimes it goes in a spiral and really, really shakes you. And those things, they can make or break you, right? We've seen this a lot where entrepreneurs burn out, or where they get really sick, or where they, you know, just sort of go into depression. And, you know, I think that the Tara of House of Tara, you know, we had a conversation earlier this year, and she said, you know, this year, so she's like 20 plus years into her business, and, you know, she said, you know, when you've done 10 years, you know, you're crazy. When you've done 20, you know, there's no hope for you, right? Because you're a complete basket case. Because there's just so many things that you will encounter on this journey that you're not really prepared for, right? But they say the things that don't, you know, sort of kill you only make you stronger. So when you're broken, you need the skills to pick yourself back up, and you need, you know, the skills to really just say, I am doing this, right? And that's sort of where discipline, sacrifice, endurance, self-motivation come in. Obviously, you also need key entrepreneurial skills, and we'll talk a little bit about, you know, what those are and how you can acquire them. So what are they? So it's visionary skills, time management and organizational skills, people management skills. So you need some type of, you know, you need to manage your customers, you need to manage your team, right? And believe it or not, these skills are actually more important than the actual technical skills that you will acquire, because those skills are what, you know, first of all, will keep your customers and will also keep your team. You need to have accounting and administrative skills, especially when you're starting out. You're sort of everything. You're the lawyer, you're the accountant, you're the cleaner in the office, you're everything. And you have to be okay with that, right? You have to be okay with wearing multiple hats, and you have to make sure that you actually invest in yourself and invest in the knowledge that you have in order to make sure that you have these skills. You know, there are branding and marketing skills that you need, training and knowledge transfer skills, right? So you need to be able to train people so that they can know what you know, right? So you hire someone and the person doesn't know what you know, right? I talked about experience, and I talked about experience taking time, right? Sometimes you can speed up experience by transferring knowledge, but you need to have the right skills and the right methods to be able to do that. Then, you know, you have business development skills. So you need to know how to actually develop your business. You need to know, how do I get more customers? You need to be able to create a strategy for your business, right? And you need to have the actual implementation and execution skills as well. So one of the sayings that I really like is, an entrepreneur never stops learning. An entrepreneur constantly needs new inspiration, new knowledge, and new goals, right? And I think that really, really captures sort of what entrepreneurship is. It is that journey where you reinvent yourself over and over again. And my son has this book about the little caterpillar. And in the end, you know, so the caterpillar was very hungry, and, you know, so he came out of his little egg, then he just started eating. So every day he was eating more and more and more until he got a stomach ache, and then he got really, really fat. And then he went into his cocoon, and he came out as a butterfly, right? That is, you know, for me, entrepreneurship in a nutshell, right? So you go through this journey where you have to experience so many different things in order to reach your full potential, right? And you have to literally transform from the egg to the caterpillar, and from the caterpillar into the butterfly, right? And it takes time. It's not something that, you know, sort of happens overnight. And, you know, I think that patience is probably one thing that I was missing on the other list that I just shared, because I think that that's really the key ingredient to being able to endure, to being able to continuously self-motivate, right? To be patient and trust in the journey, and trust that, you know, you are on the right track and you are on the right path, because entrepreneurship is also very lonely. I think now maybe not so lonely anymore, because Now entrepreneurship is sort of like a hype thing. When I started, I was the only one of my friends that was running their own business, and everybody was like, "You're a bit crazy. What are you doing? Why do you want to start a business? Go and get a job." And I had job offers from banks, from tech companies. I just didn't want a job. I just wanted to do this thing, and I wanted to do it by myself. And I said to my friend, I said, if I don't do this now, I was 25 when I started my business. I said, if I don't do this now, I will probably never do this. And she said, why? You can always do this. I said, well, at 25, I have no obligations. I live in my parents' house. They give me food. I drive their car, and I really have nothing. So my money is my money. I use it for nonsense. I use it to buy clothes. I use it to do my hair. I use it to, buy makeup and whatever I like and go out and eat out. But, I said, so is it when I'm 35 and I have a child or two that I'm going to now suddenly say, I'm not going to have income. I'm going to try this out. I'm going to start a business. Probably not, right? I said, by that time, I want to have the flexibility to have freedom of my time, to have financial freedom, to be able to say, this is what I want to do with my time. This is how I want to spend it, right? I want to be able to take an hour or two out of my day to come and talk to you guys, for example, right? When you're in paid employment, you have to ask for permission to do that. I don't. I can do whatever I want, and nobody has to, nobody has to be okay with it. The only person that has to be okay with it is myself. So yeah, so how can you obtain, sort of technology and entrepreneurial skills, right? I think that now there's so much more information out there than there was when I was starting, right? Because the world has just simply gone more and more digital. So there are amazing podcasts, there are blog posts, there are articles, there are books, there are online courses, there's formal training. There's social media, right? So you have your Twitter, you have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have Google, you have forums that you can join. There are online seminars. I mean, there are so many webinars now. It's just really crazy. So anything you want to learn, you're able to learn, sort of online and through workshops, training sessions. There are competitions that you can join, to sort of test how good your solution is that you have. There are conferences to attend. And I think, sort of, when you really want to be an entrepreneur, you just have to start. So you have to face your fear and rise. And you have to make mistakes, right? So I talked about failing, right? And failing forward. So you have to fail, you have to stumble, but you always have to get back on your feet, right? And that's where that discipline, motivation, and drive comes from. And you have to never give up, and always strive for more, right? So also don't get comfortable with where you are. Sometimes you're like, wow, my business is doing well. I'm making 500K a month. Oh yeah, that's great. But Aliko is making that in a second. Does he have two heads? No. Can you get more? Right? Yes. Right. So think about that. Right. So they said, and this is like years ago, I'm sure that number is much higher now, that Bill Gates makes $4 million every night he goes to sleep. $4 million every night he goes to sleep. Right. Some people don't make that in a year. So you have to really think about, what is the best use of your time? How big do you want what you want to build to be, right? Can you do more? And the answer usually is yes, right? And this is really for paid employment as well as entrepreneurs. You can always push yourself to do more. And then I think one key ingredient, and I think this is for me the most important thing about life, is to learn every day something new, right? And I always tell my team, I'm like, learn like your life depends on it, because that's the only investment that you can make in yourself that nobody can take away, right? So the money that you earn, it can still get stolen. It can, go bust in a bank. It can, there's so many, you can spend it on nonsense. So that's not, so tangible. The physical assets that you have. So if you, have clothes and you have jewelry and you have, different things, those can get stolen as well or taken away from you. But what's in your head, the knowledge that you have, nobody can take away, right? Which means that is actually the biggest investment that you can make. And sometimes that means that you have to pay money, right? So I have people who are like, oh, I really want to learn, but I don't have data. And then you don't really want to learn. When you're really ready to learn, you will go and find the data, right? So for everyone who tuned in today, you've taken that step. that other people are not willing to take, and that's what's going to set you apart, right? Because you're going to learn something, or there will be something that will inspire you to do more, right? To push further. And you need to keep seeking these opportunities. So learning is not just, oh, I'm going to do a certificate or I'm going to do this, right? So one of my staff once asked me, she said, Nkem, can you give me a list of like all the certificates that you have? And I started laughing, and she was like, why are you laughing? It's not a funny question, you know, because I was laughing really hard. And she was like, I said, well, I can, but it's not going to be very helpful. And she says, why? And I said, well, I only have one. And she looks at me like, how does this makes no sense, right? And I said, well, I have a networking certificate that my dad asked me to do, right? So I'm a certified network engineer. And I don't work as a network engineer. I've never used those skills, right? But my dad wanted me to do that certification. So at the end of the day, certifications do not equate to the knowledge that you have, right? Because she then said, but you know so many things. How do you know so many things and you know, but you have only one certificate that you don't even use? And I said, well, because to me, the knowledge is more important than the paper. I said, there are many people with paper. There are people who have 20, 100 certificates. If I go in the same room with them and I'm applying for a job or bidding for a project, or they want to, you know, appoint me as an advisor or put me on a board, I will get that because I actually have more knowledge and they have paper, right? So you need to think about the value of the knowledge and not the value of the paper. I think that's really, really important when you think about learning, right? Learning is not just in classroom. Learning is on the job. Learning is in, you know, through reading books, right? Learning is by listening to other people speak. Learning is by exchanging, you know, sort of thoughts and ideas with your peers. And, you know, all of those things are considered learning. They're not formal education, but they create knowledge in your head, you know, and I think that that's really what you need to, you know, sort of focus on, that knowledge creation and ensuring that you have the right type of people around you that push you, that you have the right type of access to information, and that you continuously seek new opportunities to learn. And then you also need to not only focus on technology skills, right? Because sometimes you have, you know, these really, really amazing developers who, they can write any code that you want. Put them in front of the client, they cannot talk to that client, right? They're not able to have a normal conversation. They are not able to get what the client actually wants, right? And if you don't have those skills, then you can't actually run a business, right? Because then you're just a dev. And then you better go work for someone who needs a dev, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But if you want to be an entrepreneur, you need well-rounded skills, right? And this is why I talked about the, you know, sort of administrative skills and marketing skills and branding skills and all of those, because those are very different from sort of core technology skills that, you know, you may be learning right now. So you may be learning how to code, but are those things really going to be what will make you an entrepreneur? The truth is no, right? They make you a really great employee. So if that's the path that you choose, that's fantastic. But if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to be a founder and you want to own your own business, you need to start accelerating your learning, right? You need to start thinking about what are the other skills that I need, right? And obviously, winners never quit and quitters never win, right? So if you want this, then you must make sure that you never quit. It takes a long time, right? It is a journey. It's not a, it doesn't happen overnight, right? So there's this saying that I really like. I should have put this in here actually. They say 10 years of hard work make you look like an overnight success, right? And that's really what it is, right? When I got appointed to the Stanbic board last year, I was speaking to someone who, you know, has known me for a really long time, and he was telling me about how some other lady called him and was like, that this Nkem, she just got appointed to the board. Just overnight, just like that. And he started laughing and he said, look, you don't understand that this is not overnight. This is a 10-year plan in the making, right? She said, this is something that I met her 10 years ago and she was talking about these type of opportunities. And she has put work into getting to where she is. She has built her brand, she has built her profile, she has shown that she's an expert, she has positioned as a thought leader, she has positioned as someone who has integrity, someone, you know, there's so many facets to it. So it's not just the knowledge, it's the full package, the whole picture, right? You know, and he said, look, if you want to have these type of opportunities, then you need to work harder, because you're not working hard enough. You're not doing the things that will set you apart. You're not going the extra mile, right? So you really have to think about, how do you unlock opportunities? And you usually unlock opportunities by being the best. And being the best means that you need to beat the best, right? So you need to first identify who is the best, and how do I become better than the best, right? And I think that that's really, really key in anything that you do. So they say, give a girl the right shoes and she can conquer the world. This is how shoes that I usually wear look like. Today, I'm actually barefoot because I'm at home, and I miss wearing heels. I miss, you know, sort of going to speaking engagements and be able to wear my cute dresses and my heels. You know, I think that was one of the things I really miss in this pandemic. But I do believe that a good pair of heels gives you that added confidence, gives you that added, you know, pep in your step. So you know, if you're in this male-dominated space where, you know, people, you know, sort of you walk past and people turn their head and they're like, who's that? Or maybe that's the new HR manager, or maybe this is the new marketing person. But you're a developer, you are, you know, a product manager, you are a program manager, you are a project manager, you're techie as hell, and it's good, right? Don't let anyone, if you love heels, don't let anyone take them away, because that's how you're going to conquer your world, okay? So the question is, are you ready, right? And most people are probably going to say no, but guess what? No one really ever is. So you just have to start planning for tomorrow, today, right? And I think that that's something that's really important. You have to be very intentional. You have to have a plan for what you want to achieve for every single year, right? So every year at the beginning of the year, I revisit my plan and I look at what have I achieved? What are the things that I still need to achieve? How do I get to that next level, right? And I talked about bigger picture thinking, right? So you need to know what your bigger picture looks like in order for you to break it down and sort of identify the little steps that you need to get to that bigger picture, right? So doing your best at this moment puts you in the best place for the next moment, right? And that is sort of what I talked about being the best, right? And beating the best. And that's what Oprah said. And, you know, I mean, she is one powerhouse. And, you know, there was an interview that I saw where she said, you know, all she wants is to make $30,000, you know, and somebody then said to her, well, I guess you got the $30,000. She said, yeah, I got much more than $30,000, right? And that just shows that you have to have passion, you have to have, you know, drive, because when you read Oprah's story, you will see that she came from very, very humble beginnings, right? Her grandmother was actually like a washwoman, you know, and she told Oprah, like, all you need to know is how to hang these clothes, then you'll be good, right? And Oprah swore to herself that she didn't want to do that. She didn't want to learn how to hang the clothes because that's not what she wanted to do. She wanted to do much bigger things, right? So sometimes people will also not believe in you, right? When you start, right? Because the path that you're choosing is maybe a path that's not the most common path. It's not the most traveled path. And that may be just choosing STEM or a job in STEM or starting a business that is technology driven or is a tech business, right? Especially for women, right? A lot of the time, it's like, oh no, STEM is for boys, tech is for boys. I'm here to tell you that it's not, and you can do whatever you want, right? You just need to believe in yourself. And, you know, in believing in yourself, you have to realize that you need to be your biggest cheerleader, right? Because sometimes there's no one clapping. In fact, a lot of the times there's no one clapping, right? It takes a really long time for people to see you, for people to start recognizing you, to recognize your achievements, to, you know, and I think that that's nice, right? But if you let, you know, those type of things sort of get to your head, you can also misstep very, very quickly, right? So I've got lots and lots of different awards. You know, I'm apparently one of the 42 most innovative Africans. I'm one of the top 10 female tech founders in Africa to watch. You know, there are so many different, awards that I have, but if I allow those to, sort of, if I use them to sort of beat my chest and say, this is who I am, the truth is that you can fall very, very fast from that pedestal that you've built over time if you don't retain humility, right? So that part of humility that I mentioned earlier is really, really important on your journey, and every single step that you take, leave the pride behind, because, a lot of the time these things don't really mean anything, right? So in 2014, when I was published on that Forbes list, right, everybody was like, oh my God, it's Forbes, this is amazing. And I said, until I get published on the Forbes list for money, it doesn't mean that much, right? And my friends were like, you're just crazy. Why are you talking down your achievements, this and that? I said, no, but this is, for me, unless I'm on that list with Aliko and them, then it doesn't mean much, right? So my goals are much bigger than being published, because there are not many, first of all, there are not many women on the continent that are in tech. So it's really not that hard to make the top 10, and so you have to keep pushing yourself, right? And you need humility for that. You need, sort of like, don't feel like, oh, this is the best that I've achieved. No, the version that is better than that exists, right? Who I am today, tomorrow I don't want to be that person anymore. I want to be a better version of that person, right? And that can be done through daily learning, right? Daily activities where you share, where you give back, where you teach people, right? So teaching is a really powerful way of learning as well, right? When you teach people, a lot of the times, I have a friend and we had a conversation, I think 2 weeks ago or so, and I was in his office and I was telling him, so he's a serial entrepreneur that's even worse than me. During this pandemic, he started like 3 or 4 businesses. And I said to him, you need to slow down. This is too much. You're going crazy, right? I'm like, you don't even have the capacity to run all of these businesses, right? And, when I finished, I said, I was talking to myself. I wasn't really talking to you, because sometimes the message that we deliver is a message that we need to hear ourselves, right? Which is why it's really good to surround yourself with very like-minded people, and see what they're doing, right? Me looking at him and I'm like, 3 businesses in a pandemic, are you crazy? What's going on? How are you doing with the other businesses? I'm like, focus on impact, right? And then when those businesses are big enough, you can then move on to the next. I said, not all ideas are for you. There are people that have ideas like sand, at the beach, but they're not all for you. Most of them are meant to be given away, right? So if you're one of those people, give them away. Other people need them more than you, because other people don't have that many ideas. Keep the ones that you think are gold, but all the other ones that are little grains of sand, they're not for you, they're for other people. So allow them to flourish somewhere else, right? And that you can do by sharing knowledge, by sharing your insights, by sharing these ideas with people, right? By writing them down, by blogging about them, by just putting them out there. Somebody else will pick those up and make them really, really big while you work on the ones that are gold and that are yours. So my, sort of marching orders for you are: go on and find out what it means to live your dream, right? And if your present thinking cannot lead you to your vision, you need to change it, and you need to do that very, very fast. So thank you for your attention. These are my details where you can find me on Instagram and Twitter, and Medium is where I blog. So if you want to read more or, sort of just follow my journey, you can do that.
Wow. I think I speak for all of us when I say that was amazing. There's so many nuggets of wisdom that I myself was frantically writing and tweeting, if you noticed. And I know that there's going to be a lot of questions and engagements. I actually want to kick us off before I hand it to Jane to facilitate the questions. There are a lot of things that you said that really resonate with me and with the things that we try to teach our students. So we're not just teaching coding or robotics, we're also teaching, the values, the work ethic, integrity, and, putting in the work, going the extra mile to learn things. And one of the things that you said is also about gaining experience. So I have 2 questions for you around this. The first is, you started your business at 25, And of course, we know that with entrepreneurship, because it's so difficult, having experience, having worked for someone or done internships is usually valuable. So how were you able to transition? What experience did you have when you were starting your business that helped you to become successful? And very closely related to that is, in Nigeria specifically, and I think in many African countries, students don't really have the opportunity to do internships. So in the US, you're in college for 4 years. Every summer, you're doing a 3-month internship. Sometimes it extends to 6 months. So by the time you graduate, you have about a year of formal experience working in a corporate environment. Whereas in Nigeria, you graduate and that's the first time that you're ever in a working environment. And so you haven't really learned some of those soft skills that you mentioned. So what are some things that we can do, in Nigeria to ensure that students get more access to these types of opportunities? And then I'm handing it over to Jane. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so I'll maybe start by talking about sort of my experience, right? And so I actually, even when I was in secondary school, I was working. I was teaching kids in my school that were younger than me that need like lessons. So I was like a lesson teacher. So after school, I would go to their house and just teach them, and then the parents would pay me for that. And that at a very young age sort of allowed me to understand, that you have to work hard and you have to be willing to make those sacrifices, because my friends were, playing after school and, hanging out, playing video games while I was working. And I sort of took that into university as well, right? So when I selected my course of study, one of the criteria for one of the universities that I applied to, I didn't end up going there, but I'm glad that I applied there because it shaped everything else, right? And it basically asked that you had to do an internship, right? And again, in Nigeria, there are not that many opportunities to do internships, and especially when I was in secondary school, this was not a thing. So I had to find an internship to apply on time, right? So the minute I graduated, I had to basically start this internship. So I started looking, and it had to be in a bioinformatics department, which didn't exist in Nigeria. So because I knew I was going to study in Germany, I started looking there. My mom is from Germany, so it had to be near my grandmom's place, right? So I found the Institute for Tropical Medicine in Hamburg, which was like an hour from my grandmom's place. And they had a bioinformatics department. So I sent an email there and I said, hey, I'm this girl from Nigeria. I need an internship. And it has to be 6 weeks. And I want to come work with you guys. And the professor actually wrote back and he said, okay, give me a call at this and this time. So I called him, and he then basically started asking all these questions like, okay, do you have any work experience? Like, I'm like, no, I'm from secondary school. I just did my A-levels. Like, I have nothing. And then I told him about, summer jobs that I had done. I told him about my teaching, and he was like, okay, fine, just come, but we can't pay you. I said, that's fine. My, parents will pay for my transportation, because it's like a 1-hour train ride, right, that I had to take every day. And, like feeding and stuff, they will sort it out, and I will stay with my grandmom. So he was like, okay, cool, no problem. So when you get to Germany, this is the day that you start. So I went, and it was, this was like a peep into grown-up world, right? Because at that point, fresh out of secondary school, not that much, sort of real working knowledge. And then you're in this research institute where they do like really scientific work that you just don't even understand. It's like way over my head. But the one benefit that I had, right, and this is where you sometimes don't know what skills are going to be important on your journey, was the fact that I spoke both German and English fluently, right? And I could translate. And my English was much, much better than the English of everyone in that department. And they had to, but because it's research, right, all the publications are in English. So they were struggling writing their publications. So they ended up writing them in German. I translated them in English. And then, you know, they were sort of like super excited that I was able to do that. And I would do anything that they asked me to do, right? So they're like, oh, research this gene. And I'm like, okay, let me go and Google it, see what I can find, right? Then they will tell you, okay, go to the library, do this, do that, whatever. After the 6 weeks were over, the professor said to me, he said, do you still have time before you go to university? And I said, yeah, I still have, you know, like, I don't know, 2 months or something. And then he said, okay, do you want to come back for another 6 weeks? This time we can pay you. And I was so excited, you know, because I was just like, wow, this is amazing, right? And I went back for another 6 weeks, right? My friends who lived, you know, where my grandmom lived were like, you're crazy, you can just hang out, you can just have fun every day. You're there on the train for 1 hour and then 1 hour going back. I'm like, look, me, I'm from Lagos. Train is a big luxury, right? So it's not stress to me, right? I ride my bicycle to the train station. I enter the train, you just sit down in this nice place, and then it drives you to where you need to go. You come out and you walk a few meters to where you're going, right? It's not a big deal. And, you know, but in their minds, it was like, okay, why are you so crazy? Like, you can work when you grow up. You don't need to work now. But for me, it was just like, this is such an amazing opportunity. And I've learned so much in the first 6 weeks. I want to learn more. And, you know, the fact that he's offering this means that he actually values what I've been doing, right? And again, I'm so glad that I made that decision, right? And when I made that decision, you know, so I worked those 6 weeks, I got paid, I was very excited. And, you know, like one of the sort of last weeks or so that I was there, he said, oh, have you chosen the university that you're going to go to? I said, yes, I have. And, you know, then he said, okay, which one? So I said, oh, the Ludwig Maximilian University in Munich. And he said, okay, give me a call in November. I have a job for you. You know, I was very confused because he's in Hamburg. Munich is like, so it's like Lagos to Abuja, right? It's far. It's not, you know, like you can't take a 1 hour train to get there. So I was very confused. I was just like, okay, why? You know, like, where is this job? Like, what are you talking about? And he said, well, that he's changing jobs and he's going to be working at the Max Planck Institute for Psychiatric Research in Munich. And he needs an assistant and that he wants me to be this assistant. And this is how I got this job that I was talking about earlier, where I worked in research, right, in the Department for Statistical Genetics. That was my, you know, sort of first student job. And so I was studying full-time and working part-time. I was also still teaching. So I then found like a little boy near my house that I was teaching after work. So I would go to school, then go to work, then go to teach, and then go home. A lot of my friends didn't understand it because they're like, okay, you know, you're in university, you're supposed to have fun and party. It's not like I didn't do that. I did that as well. But, you know, for me, I wanted to accelerate my learning, right? And I still feel up till today that the knowledge that I acquired working in that job, in that department, was knowledge that I would never have been able to gain in university, right? And my advice for every single person here is choose the path that is uncommon, right? Just because everybody else does not have an internship or have a job while they're in university, or your parents don't think that you should be working, doesn't mean that that's the right thing, right? Go and find a job that will add value, that will teach you work ethic, that will teach you how to behave in the workplace, that will teach you, you know, that people have to work hard for their money, right? It's very easy when you get pocket money from mom and dad or your uncle or whoever, right? But when you go to work, you will spend that money very differently, right? And these are lessons that you can learn early. You don't need to wait for a long time to learn them, right? And there are companies out there that will give you internships. All you need to do is ask. They say, ask and you shall be given, right? And so this job that I got, I worked there for 2 years, and the institute basically doesn't allow you to work for more than 2 years as a student, because then they have to, when you graduate, they would have to offer you a full-time position. So they don't want sort of those type of binding contracts. So for students, they only do 2-year contracts. So the director of that institute founded a pharmaceutical company that was in the same building. And this department that I was in, we used to do work for that company. So I knew some of the people there, but it never in my wildest dreams occurred to me that I could get a job there, right? So this same professor one day says to me, he had this way of just being very, very, I don't know, carefree and, very like he likes to spring things on you. So he says, oh, go downstairs to the first floor and ask for Marcus. I'm like, okay, no problem. What do I do there? He's like, just go and ask for Marcus. Like, stop asking all these questions. So I went and I asked for Marcus, and it turns out that I actually knew Marcus because he was one of the guys that we were sort of working with on a project. And Marcus then goes, okay, so tell me, Bertram is the professor. He said, Bertram says you need this special computer and you need, like different programs. So I just wanted to know, like, can you tell me what exactly you need so that we can set it up? And I'm like, set it up for what do you think? I was so confused. I didn't know what he was talking about, right? And he says, oh, they started laughing. Then he said, oh, Bertram didn't tell you. Your new job starts next week. I didn't do all this time, right? There's never been a job interview. I've never submitted a CV. I've never, had to go to a proper interview, right? So that's how I got that job, right? And that job I did till I finished university, and I kept it when I moved back to Nigeria, actually. And I was working remotely. So I'm probably one of the first people in Nigeria to work remotely, because this was in 2005. And I actually kept that job for, I think, till about 2009, right? So even after I started my business, I was still doing this job because it was paying my bills, and when I started, I didn't actually need full 8 hours to do my work, right? Because when you start a business, you don't really have customers immediately. So, you sort of build everything over time. So that job also helped me to bootstrap. It helped me not need any type of investment into my business. It was self-funded from the start and still is, and that is something that is also really important, I think, because when you, when you start your entrepreneurial journey, you are going to be broke for a really long time. That's just how it is, right? Unless you raise. But I also think that there are very many dangers with raising funds in terms of having too much money or access to too much money that will make you do stupid things, right? And I've seen this multiple times. So be careful with that. I'm not saying don't do it, but just be careful with that. But, so the story that I'm trying, or the point I'm trying to make, is that one internship led to multiple opportunities that lasted for years, right? And opportunities that were able to, but the only reason why that happened, right? Some of my friends say, oh, you're so lucky. And like Oprah, I believe in luck, right? I believe in hard work. I believe in showing value. I believe in adding value. I believe in working really, really hard and going the extra mile. That is what puts you forward, right? So yes, you can be blessed, but luck doesn't exist, right? You have to be prepared to meet the opportunities that are in front of you. If you're not prepared, then you're not going to be ready for those opportunities, right? Now, the funny thing is, like I've said, all this while, I've never done an interview. So then I went back to Nigeria for my mom's birthday, just before I graduated. And I met a friend of a friend who had a company. And, we were just chatting at my mom's birthday, where he showed up with my other friend. And, he was like, oh, so when you move back, what are your plans? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I still have my job, and, I'm not really looking for anything. I'm going to do NYSC. He's like, okay, come and work for me. That's how I got my first job in Nigeria, at a party, right? So my path, very, very unconventional, very, very different, right? And the funny thing is that when I was invited to do the Stanbic board, so the way it works when you get appointed to a board, you don't just get appointed, right? They have to interview you first. And I panicked because, they said, oh, come and interview with 3 of the directors. And I was like, I told my friend, I said, I've never done an interview in my life. I don't know, they said, oh, send your CV. I called my friend, I said, please, I don't have a CV, right? I've never had to submit my CV for anything. So, I mean, I have my LinkedIn profile that has all my experience that, if you ask me for my CV, I'll export it and say, here you are, because I don't need a CV, right? So I have a profile because I'm an executive and, you know, I need that for speaking engagements. I need that for, you know, being on a committee and stuff like that. But I've never been asked to give my CV. So I was just like panicking. And I then, you know, my friend, you know, after laughing at me thoroughly, he then said, okay, I'll help you. And he, you know, took a lot of time to help me build a really, really good CV. So that's what I sent. And then, you know, another friend was like, okay, I'll prep you for this interview. But, you know, she said, it's not going to be like a job interview. I'm like, yeah, I'm not like, I know what that is either. I interview people, people don't interview me. Right. And she then said, well, just talk about the things that you know, right? You'll be fine. And, you know, that's in the end what happened, right? It was more of them getting to know me and me answering questions and answering them in a knowledgeable manner, right? But, you know, that is one skill that I picked up very, very late, right? I would advise everybody to pick up that type of skill very, very early, you know, so that you can smash interviews that you go to. And even if you are, you know, in situations where you don't need, you know, to interview, or where, you know, so people sort of offer you a job for, you know, maybe the achievements that you already have, or you get headhunted or whatever it is, right? Just don't take that skill as a skill that you can take for granted, because you may need it 10 years down the line. So I hope that answers your questions.
It does. Thank you so much. And I know we're almost getting to the end, but are you able to go on for another 30, 40 minutes, just so we give everybody the opportunity?
Maybe another 20 minutes, because I have another meeting. Yeah.
Okay, so Jane, over to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mike. It has been an insightful section. So we have a couple of questions from some of our students. I'm going to start with Ebun. Ebun, please unmute your mic, introduce yourself, and then you can go ahead and ask your question.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ebun. Thank you, Nkem. This has been honestly such a motivating presentation. It's been great to hear all you've had to say. So I actually have two questions. The first one is, early on in the presentation, you spoke about being confident in who you are. What are some practical tips you would have for becoming confident in who you are? And secondly, as someone who's looking at switching careers, and I've just completed the 5-week coding bootcamp with Visiola, how soon do you think I should start applying to jobs? Like, what is the balance between feeling capable and feeling ready? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, you're never going to be ready. You're never going to be capable. So apply now. And really, like I said, face your fears and rise, right? When we're doing our Obama leadership training, there was an executive coach there, and she said, you need to constantly operate in the space between fear and terror, right? And what does that mean? It means that you need to be scared, really, really scared of what it is that you are going to do next, right? In order for it to be big enough. But it shouldn't terrify you to the point that you are completely paralyzed, right? So that is the space that you should constantly operate in, because that is the space that makes you grow, right? Everybody that, you know, will know that you've just graduated. It's fine, right? What you have to realize is that the person who will employ you most likely for other things that you bring to the table, right? It could be previous experience that you have, right? Because you're talking about changing careers. So if you're, let's say you're coming from, what area are you coming from and changing?
From the international development field.
Okay, so international development, right? There is a lot of knowledge that you have that, you know, probably some NGOs that are technology driven, like, for example, a budget would need, right? So if you applied for sort of a dev position in that type of organization, there would be additional knowledge that you're bringing to the table. So I think you just find a really good match and just really start getting clear on what type of work you want to do and what else you bring to the table, and package it like that, right? In terms of, you know, sort of practical things to, you know, build your confidence. So I think for me, a lot of my confidence comes from my competence, right? And from the knowledge that I have. the worst thing that can happen to me is not being prepared, right? And so, for example, with this Stanbic interview, right, like it came out of first of all, the request came out of the blue. I first thought it was 419. I was just like, who is this person that is calling me, and, like, it was just like, I mean, it was for me, I couldn't believe it, right? And I actually put the person's number in Truecaller to verify his identity. Yeah. And because I Googled the name and then it was the group CEO, and I'm like, surely the group CEO does not just call you so casually, right? But then when, that interview came, and I was supposed to go, and I had I think a week or so to prepare for it, right? I was freaking out because, like I said, I haven't done interviews, ever before. I was freaking out because this is, sort of like one of the largest financial institutions in Nigeria. And I was seeking for a board seat, but I didn't think, I thought you start with a small board and then, in 5 years, you'll be on a big board, right? It's a listed company. So it was just like, it terrified me. It was just like, me, small girl, I will now go there and say what, and I'm not usually a person that is not confident, right? But I felt that I have the right competence? I asked so many questions, right? And in that, what I realized was important was the people who surrounded me in those moments, right? And those were, I still have a couple of people who I call the board of directors of my life, right? And these are people who are very brutally honest with me and who push me, who are my accountability buddies, and who, sort of just tell me when I'm going the right way or when I'm going the wrong way, or, when they feel like you need some humble pie, calm down, or, or beat your chest. Sometimes they say that, right? And what all of them said, they all said, okay, we know you need to be prepared. First of all, go and read the annual report of this company, right? And then, start talking to people who can help you, who have done board interviews before. Go look at your network and look at who are the friends that you have in that network who sit on big boards, who sit on listed companies, who have gone through this interview process. Go ask them what to expect, right? Because once you are prepared, you are confident, right? Because once you believe that you are competent, right? They wouldn't have called you if you were not competent in the first place, right? But I needed that sort of preparation, right? And I mean, I went into that meeting with notes. I had 6 pages of notes. I did not just read the annual report, I studied it, right? And I made notes, and I had all sorts of different things. And I looked specifically at what their technology and digital strategy was, right? Then I did research into, sort of technology strategies in the financial services space and stuff like that. That gave me the confidence to speak from a position of competence, right? So I may not have ever built an AI-powered, fintech solution, but it doesn't matter. I understand what it is. So I can speak from a level of competence, right? And knowledge. And I think those are the things that can give you confidence, right? And practicing, right? Practice, and keep learning. And like I said, teaching is one way of actually solidifying your skills, because when you teach, you actually are learning as well. So that might be an area that you should, sort of find people that you can teach the coding skills that you've picked up. That way you share knowledge, you impact the life, but you're learning as well. And then also maybe figure out are there sort of maybe virtual internships that you can join? And I think a lot of companies are doing that now, right? Where, they know you don't have knowledge. They know you're entry level. They know, you're fresh off the boat, but they're willing to teach you, and they're willing to give you problems to solve. And they're willing to take a chance on you, right? So I think the more open you are to opportunities, the more you sort of go out there to seek opportunities, the more opportunities will come your way, right? And what you have to realize is that technology is one field where the knowledge that you have, regardless of what sector it comes from, is actually very, very valuable. And it's not just the technology skills that you have, right? So don't think too much about, oh, but I can't write, I don't know, if they say I should build Paystack, I can't build Paystack. Yeah, first of all, it wasn't built by one person. Secondly, it wasn't built overnight, right? And thirdly, there were people on there that had the same skill level like you, but now they have a much, much higher skill level, right? Experience takes time. So just believe in the journey, right? But I think put yourself out there, start applying, make it known to family, friends, and people, put it on your LinkedIn. Let people know that this is what, you're looking for opportunities where you can be part of a project. And also I think one thing, that I've sort of learned that sometimes you take opportunities that don't give anything back to you, right? And what does that mean? It means that there may be an opportunity that is not paid, more of a volunteer opportunity, or an internship that is not paid, that will take you to that next level, right? So just, keep pushing and add value. And I think you'll have amazing stories to share in a few years.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This is helpful. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ma. I have a question from Omobolanle. Unfortunately, I think she's having network issues. So she's asking, she has a background in biochemistry and considering a career transition into tech. What mistakes should she avoid in making her transition as someone that is new into tech?
As someone that what?
That is new into technology.
So, I think, again, the same thing, right? Learn like your life depends on it. Learn something new every day. And I think when you're new in an organization as well, sort of look at where can you add value? What are the things that they're not doing? That way you get visibility, you stand out, you help them solve problems, and those type of things are much more important. Technology skills you can acquire, right? Knowledge you can acquire. So, let your character come through, right? Your hardworking, the discipline that you have, the motivation that you have, being helpful, wanting to add value. I think those things are much more important, right? And make sure that everything that you ask questions. If you don't know something, just ask, right? People appreciate that much more than you going off and then sort of being like, well, I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything. And I think that also look out for people who seem that they are very, very smart and knowledgeable within the new organization. Hang on to them, become their friend, their best buddy. Let them teach you everything that they know, right? And do the same when you are in the position that you can teach. So I hope that sort of helps answer her question.
Yes, it does. I have another question from Jessica. Jessica would like to know, what is the inspiration behind Future Soft?
Okay, so I started Future Soft because I wanted to, so when I moved back from Germany to Nigeria, one of the sort of biggest problems that I had was that I couldn't find anything on Google. So I would search, this is like I said, 2005, right? So I would search for, maybe something like Italian restaurant in Lagos, and it would come up with 0 results found. And I was just so frustrated. Like, why are these businesses not online? Like, what is this? How am I supposed to know what time you open? How am I supposed to know which phone number I should call, right? And then I realized that everything was sort of manual, right? So you have to ask your friends. Your friends will then tell you, oh, you have to go here, then do this, call this person. Maybe this person will know, and I mean, that to me just was very tedious and didn't make sense. And like I said, I like automation, I like efficiency. So I decided to found a business that focused on putting businesses on the map, right? And it's still very important to me to build African brands, to tell African stories, and to make sure that we have a footprint as Nigerians and as Africans as well.
All right, thank you very much, Ma. And I think all the questions, I don't know if anyone has any other question to ask.
There's a question from Jordana.
Okay.
She's in Kenya, so we have a bit of a regional audience. Jordana, are you still on the line? Do you want to introduce yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, so my name is Jordana. I am a student from Kenya, and I just like to know what are some of the challenges that you face, firstly, and then how you manage your work-life balance, like, you know, your family and your work, like how you split your time between all the things that you do now that you seem to have a really busy life, work, in terms of the things that you do. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. In terms of challenges, so I always find this question really, really hard to answer because I don't really see things as sort of challenges. It's just like, oh, it's a problem, I need to solve it, right? And when you have that attitude, you sort of don't, like, it's very hard to reflect and see sort of trials and tribulations because all you see is wins, right? Because you're constantly solving. You know, but I mean, there have been times where, you know, I mean, like I said, being an entrepreneur, you're going to be broke for a really long time. So you see your friends have opportunities that you don't have because you don't have the money that they have, right? They're investing in things that you can't afford to invest in, right? But the money will come, right? When you create value, then the money follows, right? So it's just a matter of time. And that's why the saying says you will live, you know, a few years of your life. You have to be willing to live a few years of your life the way that everyone else won't, so that you can live the rest of your life the way that no one else can, right? And I think that sort of really encapsulates, you know, entrepreneurship, where you have these, you know, sort of things that you need to sacrifice, and, you know, sort of there are challenges, and there are things that, you know, you could have an easier life, yes, of course, right? But you choose to do this hard thing over and over again, but it makes you stronger every single day. You know, so for me, it's all part of the journey. So I don't really see it as, you know, sort of bumps in the road. I see it more as, well, this was part of the roller coaster, and it was in the end fun. In terms of work-life balance, I think that's a really good question. You know, especially in this pandemic, where, you know, there have been additional jobs that have been added to my portfolio, like teaching my son and homeschooling him, where, you know, like, I just feel like somebody shoot me sometimes. You know, it's tough. But the beauty of, you know, sort of, I think, because I do so many things, I'm constantly juggling my time and constantly, you know, sort of trying to figure out what is the best use of my time today, right? How do I prioritize what I want to achieve, right? And I think you have to, number one, build a really good team, right? At work and at home, right? So get the help that you need, right? And one of the really sort of powerful pieces of advice that I got before I got married was from a lady who, you know, she's been running her business for 30 years now. And she said to me, outsource everything that is not worth your time. She said, you come here and you tell me that you want to charge me X amount for an hour of your work. She said, look at that hourly charge in your free time as well. So if you clean your house for 4 hours on the weekend, this is how much money you've lost, right? She said that money can pay for someone who can do that for you. Use your time on the things that will create more value, that will make you more money, that will free up your actual time, right? And outsource everything else. So I think that was a really, really big lesson. And obviously, when you're, you know, sort of starting out and you're broke, and this, you know, lady who has lots of money because she's been building her business for 30 years, gives you this type of advice, it seems a bit, you know, counterproductive. But the truth is that even if you're spending, you know, maybe a quarter of your salary on outsourcing those things, it frees up more time for you to be able to do the things that you really need to do in order to create more value and earn more, right? So that's another type of sacrifice, right? So you're like, this money is big money that I want to have to part with in order to pay this person that's coming to clean my house, that's coming to take care of my child. But at the end of the day, what does that do for you, right? It gives you peace of mind. It allows you to have another extra hour or two to watch TV with your kid. It allows you to, you know, maybe take some time for yourself and go and do your hair or nails, right? So those are things that I think are really important. And then in terms of, you know, sort of actively doing things that are that make you happy. I think for me, those are ways to maintain that work-life balance where, you know, I will religiously go do my hair and my nails, and, you know, those things, they make me happy. They make me feel good. You know, and I do them again at very unorthodox hours, right? So I call my hairdresser and I'm like, at 7:30 in the morning tomorrow on Monday, please, I need to do my hair. And he will come and he will open the store for me and he will do my hair, because he knows that I will not come on the weekend. I will not come after work because it's just too full. There are too many people and it takes too long, right? So everything just is scheduled and everything is sort of like focused on efficiency, right? And you just need to find people who are willing to work with those crazy requests that you may have, right? To give yourself, you know, that little bit of, you know, thing that makes you happy and that makes your heart smile, right? And for me, you know, it could be buying shoes, it can be going to the spa, you know, nice dresses, jewelry, those type of things are things that I use, and I spoil myself with those things, you know, because that is what makes me happy. And when I'm happy, then I can perform better, right? And, you know, taking the time for yourself, I think is really important, because as women, you have, you know, so many things that sort of everybody dictates that you should be doing. You should be raising the child. You should put the child to bed. You should take the child to school. You need to bath the child. You have to do this. And you're still supposed to run a business, and you're supposed to, you know, still make food for your husband and have time for him and look hot for him and also all these different things. It's a lot of pressure, right? And I think that sometimes we put that pressure on ourselves because we've created this picture of this woman that doesn't really exist, right? There was a day where I was at the bank and I was waiting for, you know, the bank. I needed some type of letter from the bank and it was taking forever. And I had an appointment at my son's school, you know, and this was like his first year at school. And, you know, I was supposed, like, this was the first time they were doing this thing. It's some type of parent-teacher thing where you meet the teacher and they tell you about the work. I mean, he was in preschool, really, like it was not so important, but you know, I felt like I was failing because I wasn't there and I was in this bank that was far away and I was going to miss the time, right? And, you know, I felt like you're a bad mom because you're not going to make this, right? And, you know, so I was like putting a lot of pressure on the people in the bank. I'm like, I have an appointment, I have somewhere to go, right? And, you know, they were looking at me, who's this crazy lady? This is how long the process takes, so sit down and wait, right? Eventually I got my letter. I jumped in my car, drove like a crazy lady, you know, and on the way I called one of my friends who's a guy, and he says to me, and I said to him, I said, you know, I feel really bad because you look like my mom was always there. He said, did your mom have like 4 businesses? Did she do this? Did she? I'm like, no. He's like, yeah, exactly. This is why she was there. This is why she had the time. He said, stop measuring yourself at a standard that is impossible for you to attain. Unless you drop all of these things and you do what your mom did, you would not have the time that she has or had at the time, right? So he said, you're on your way there. You're doing the best that you can and you need to be okay with that, right? And he's like, there will be more sacrifices like that. There will be more days where you may not be able to make it, right? And it may not be in your control. And anyway, I got to the school, like, so it finished at 1 o'clock. I got there at 5 to 1. I ran, you know, in my heels into this class. And the teacher was like, oh, hello. Oh, it's so nice that you're here. You know, we're still waiting on some other people. I'm like, are you serious? Are you kidding? I'm not the last person. She's now showed me all the packs of, you know, other students that where the parents hadn't come. She's like, yeah, you know, we know this happens. People are working. So, you know, we're still here for at least another 2 hours. And I was like, wow, okay. You know, and these things then, you know, sort of put things into perspective where you've created so much pressure for yourself that didn't really exist, right? Because the teachers already knew that people were going to come late. The school knew you were driving like a crazy person, putting your life at risk and all sorts of different things, right? Where really and truly you didn't have to. But that pressure came from me because I felt like this is my son's first parent-teacher conference and I am not there, right? I have failed. You know, so I think we need to cut ourselves some slack and we need to, you know, sort of just take a step back and say, it's okay if I cannot do all the things that I have to do, right? Something will always have to give, right? So the days where, you know, you prioritize one thing something else will have to give, right? And the day you prioritize that other thing, something else will have to give, right? So I will give another example. My son had this presentation at school, and I had a conference at the same day that I was moderating and that my company hosts every year, right? And his thing started at 8 o'clock, my thing started at 11 o'clock, but it was far away from each other, right? I thought I had enough time, so I stayed there till the end. So it ended at like 9:30. So I figured if it takes me an hour, I'll get there at 10:30. I'll still have 30 minutes, right? In the end, there was so much. There was like this freak traffic. It took me 2 hours to get there. I was late for my own panel. I was on the phone, telling the organizers, you need to shift my time. And because I've been doing this panel for 4 years, they shifted my time. And then I got one of my friends to keep the audience sitting. I said, you need to go on stage and you need to go and say something, right? So there's always something that will give, right? And when I got there, I got one of my team members. I met him at the gate and I jumped out of the car. I'm like, you parked the car. And I sprinted into this hall and sprinted onto the stage, right? We still had a really good session. We still had a really good outing. So if you don't put so much pressure on yourself and you sort of become this problem solver and become resistant to being stressed out and resistant to, things getting to you too much, right? And this is the same thing. It's experienced just in a different way, right? So you've experienced these things and then you're like, yeah, they will wait for me, please. I am the star of the show, so they have to wait, and they, it's going to be fine. They've announced that it's going to start 30 minutes late. If I'm not there, I've made arrangement for someone else to moderate. So I basically was on the phone the whole time trying to solve that problem, and make sure that we had, an alternative. And I think that's really what it boils down to. You're not the only one that can do the job. You're not the only one that can take the child to school. You're not the only one that can do the work at work. You're not the only one that can clean the floor. You're not the only one that can cook the food, right? There are alternatives, and allowing yourself to tap into those alternatives, I think, is the really big thing that happens in your head, because you have this traditional stereotype in your head, and just you need to discard that, get rid of it, and figure out, how do I build the life that I really want and the life that fits where I want to go, that fits my bigger picture. I hope that answers and helps.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. We actually have a couple of questions from the participants, but unfortunately, because of time, we won't be taking it. So we'll only take 2 questions. Yeah. And is it fine if they tweet their questions at your handle?
Yes, but I won't be able to respond to them till probably this evening because I have meetings from 2 o'clock.
Okay, that's fine. So please, Tunde, please go ahead and ask your question quickly. We have Tunde from Ghana. Please unmute your mic and ask a question.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, and I'm glad to be part of this talk. I just quickly want to ask that since AI is taking over the world right now, and Nigeria is really catching up on stuff in the AI space, and I'm actually an African Masters in Machine Intelligence student here in Ghana, and I'm a Nigerian. So I want to know what plan you have at Future Software to venture into the AI space, like to render AI solutions in future, if you're not doing that right now, considering an entrepreneur that is trying to rebrand and that's giving a lot to the tech space in Nigeria. What plans do you have for AI powered solutions?
Okay. So, I mean, I'm not an AI specialist. I will never be an AI specialist. I don't think that we're going to do much in AI apart from, maybe very basic things like chatbots. So we focus more on the marketing and digital technology side and doing consultancy. And when we do consultancy, we bring in experts that then implement. So if we feel that, so for example, if we do consultancy for, let's say, a financial service institution that needs an AI solution, we wouldn't be the ones to, sort of get that solution. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. I believe in partnerships and collaboration, and there are enough people who are already doing these things. So I think it's really to support them and to ensure that they, sort of grow. And I think that, this is a lesson as an entrepreneur that you need to learn as well. You're not the solution for everything. you know, and it's a very big lesson, and it's very hard sometimes to step away from the things that are not supposed to be yours, right? And focus and ensure that you become a leader in one particular field in order to be recognized for that, right? There will be other people who will be recognized for other things, right? So I'm sure there will be great people who will be recognized for their work in AI. I'm not going to be one of them, right? And I'm okay with that. How I understand how it works, right? I understand the need for policy around AI. I understand the need for integrating AI into your businesses when you create a digital transformation strategy, right? That is the work that I do. I do policy, you know, and I implement strategy, right? So I don't work in that space, and I'm not going to work in that space, no matter how exciting it is. Because when you jump on everything that is new and shiny, you will never be good at anything, and you will never be known for anything. Doing AI, tomorrow you're doing blockchain, then the next day you're doing VR, then the next day you're doing augmented reality, then suddenly you're doing robotics. Ever really be good because you have no experience in any of it, right? You did this for 5 minutes, you did that for 5 minutes, another one for 5 minutes. So this is not, you have to think about your business strategy and what your business is focused on, and believe that that is a niche that, you know, you can really conquer. So I hope that answers.
It does. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very enlightening. Thank you.
So on that note, I just want to thank you again, Nkem, for spending the time with us. And we've gone over, and we really appreciate the valuable insights and just your openness and sharing your story and some of the lessons that have helped you to be successful in your career. And we look forward to engaging with you more in the future. And those questions will be coming at you via Twitter. So whenever you get a moment, please do respond. But on behalf of all of us, thank you so much again, and have a great rest of the day and a wonderful weekend.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun as usual.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.